Not long ago, Ajit Pai, a former Verizon lawyer and anti-net neutrality dude, was appointed as FCC chairman. I told you net neutrality is in danger. Trump doesn't know what it is, but he's against it, which is often the case with Trump, taking very strong positions on issues he knows very little about. Just a couple of weeks later, now, the Republican-controlled FCC has voted to roll back some aspects of net neutrality regulations, specifically the ones that required internet service providers to be transparent with their customers. They voted 2-1 to remove for 5 years. Basically, they're suspending for 5 years a rule which obligated smaller internet service providers, if they have under 250,000 subscribers, they no longer have to, number one, explain their pricing models and fees to customers, and they no longer have to tell customers whether they're capping bandwidth for certain websites and services. Think about that. This isn't some burdensome regulation that ISPs have to go above and beyond in order to meet. Just tell your customers what you're charging and how much bandwidth you get to use on certain websites. This will actually apply to the vast majority of ISPs. There's only 20 internet service providers in the US with over 250,000 customers. And here's the real trick. This rule applies to subsidiaries of larger ISPs, and there are many large ISPs that have split their businesses from a legal perspective into subsidiaries, each of which may have under 250,000 customers. So it actually does allow some of the really big internet service providers to skirt this requirement. FCC Commissioner Minion Clyburn said, in an ongoing quest to dismantle basic consumer protections for broadband services, the majority has decided to exempt billion-dollar public companies from being transparent with consumers. This represents yet another in a series of steps being taken to jettison pro-consumer initiatives. This might actually end up making no difference in the sense that now that we have Trump-appointed FCC chairman Ajit Pai and congressional Republicans hoping to overturn all of net neutrality, this might end up being sort of small potatoes if you scrap the entire thing.
Well, I think it's also good that this is getting attention now in the public eye, because if you remember quite a few years back, the SOPA and PIPA acts that went through Congress that similarly tried to crack down on internet freedom, they looked like they were going to pass right away, but people started calling up their Congress people, demanding that it was not going to pass, and it ended up not getting passed. This would be a different approach because, of course, it's the FCC, so they don't have to hear directly from the people.
Right. But they do have a comment line, and people can still activate around the FCC.
Yeah, and people are very passionate about this issue once they get to learn about it, and most people are going to be against this.
Ajit Pai saying that this is great because we're not going to force internet service providers to spend money in order to meet burdensome requirements, blah, blah, blah. This is a typical right-wing tactic, point to burdensome Washington. But the reality is Obama's White House Office of Management and Budget found that for ISPs to comply with these regulations, these disclosure regulations, it only demanded about 7 total labor hours per year. 7 hours per year. Absolutely not burdensome. Consumers should have the right to know when their internet traffic is being throttled, how their internet bill breaks down. Everything about Trump's administration was going to be about fighting for consumers, right? Apparently not. Not here.
I'd be willing to do these 7 regulation hours for free as long as we can keep these regulations.
Pat, willing to volunteer time to help out the overly burdened huge internet service providers.